See, the record has begun. Would you like me to give it a try? Oh, hey, there you go.
There we go.
Excellent.
I am not sure what's happening with that.
Oh.
So. Are you still able to see it, hopefully?
I see it just fine.
All right. We apologize about that. So we'll just do a couple introductory slides, and then we'll move right into the presentation. Again, I'm not sure exactly why that did that. It just wouldn't let me share my screen. I was actually showing scared. But just a couple things to mention before we get started is the PASS Summit, of course, is coming up in just a couple of months, and the code for saving on your registration is still available. It's down there at the bottom of the screen. Feel free to go ahead and continue to use that. You can share that with your friends and coworkers. And I'm also going to mention that I just found out, actually just a little bit earlier tonight.
Yes? I'm sorry to interrupt, but you did mention the bottom of the screen. What I see right now is your chapter deck in PowerPoint, and it does not show that it has started.
Really?
I see the edit mode right now with all the tiles off to the left. Okay, now I don't see that, and I'm back to the other screen. My suspicion is if you have started the PowerPoint presentation, you may have tried to go off screen.
Yeah, that's
to a second.
I actually don't have my second monitor attached, so can you still see it or no? Yes.
Now I don't. I'm back to the original start screen.
Alrighty. I'm going to try to stop completely. Is that any better?
Yes. Oh, yeah, there's the code, VC15PRD5.
Yeah, I am not certain what's going on with my screen.
Looks good now, though.
It looks good? Okay, well, good. Okay. So, again, we apologize. But again, there's the code down at the bottom, VC15BRD5. Again, you feel free to go ahead and use that for your registration if you have not already registered. This is just kind of a screen that shows all the different virtual chapters. Of course, there's chapters that are related to specific areas of SQL Server. There's also virtual chapters that are related to specific locations. There's one for you to get involved with, and of course, in addition to the business intelligence virtual chapter. Here are some things that are going on. You've got two today. This actually may have already occurred on the 16th, but there's also two that are coming up on the 21st and on the 29th. So those are some things that you could definitely participate in. Also, the SQL Saturdays are another good learning opportunity, and those are available. You can see in San Diego, Denver on the 19th, and Spartanburg, South Carolina on the 26th, and then internationally, there's also several that are coming up in the next couple of weeks, and then again on the 26th. Those are wonderful learning opportunities for you to go and participate in a free learning. Generally, you'll have to pay for your lunch, but it is well worth the expense for lunch for the training that you get for free. Of course, there's local chapters that are all around the United States and around the world that you can get involved with. If you want to start a new one, there's plenty of opportunities for that, of course, if there's not one local to you. I wanted to mention tomorrow is the 24 Hours of PASS, the Summit Preview Edition. Definitely want to pay attention to that. Again, it's free training opportunity, 24 hours throughout the day tomorrow. I will mention that there is, they're kind of advertising, I guess, what they call a PASS boutique, and they're going to make some mention of that at tomorrow's 24 Hours of PASS sessions. But it's a place you can go buy free, you can go buy, purchase, I shouldn't say free, you can go purchase specific Summit branded goodies is what they're saying. So I don't know if you want something pertaining to SQL Server or shirt or what have you, that they're going to be for sale. So look for that tomorrow. I just got an email on that just earlier today. But again, go ahead and register. 24hoursofpass.com is where you're going to want to go with that. Of course, there's always opportunities to volunteer. Wes and I would always love for you to speak if you'd like to the past Business Intelligence Virtual Chapter. We have plenty of opportunities available for you to speak. We can basically look at any time of the day and night to be able to accommodate you. So feel free to give us an email to let us know. If you have a volunteer that you would like to nominate for the Passion Award, the information's here on the screen, but you could always go to the PASS website and look up for the Passion Award and make that nomination. And then, of course, if you want to stay involved with the different things that are going on with PASS, there's ways to do it: LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and then, of course, the PASS website. So with that said, again, I appreciate y'all hanging with me with the couple of technical glitches, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Wes now, and he's going to talk for about 50 minutes or so on some of the fine topics of how to build your first Power BI dashboard in 60 minutes. And of course, if you have questions during the presentation, feel free to post them in the Q&A area. I'll be happy to try to answer them if I can. Otherwise, we'll save them to the end and we'll go over those at that time. So I'm going to go ahead and now I'm going to turn it over to Wes, and it'll take us a second. Hopefully we can get the presentation. He'll do a better job than I will at making the presentation, and go ahead and there. And I see your desktop, so you're already doing better than I am.
Excellent.
All right.
So yeah, feel free to interrupt me with questions as I go along. I realize this is pretty new content for most folks. I know it says 60 minutes up there. Don't worry, it doesn't actually even take 6 minutes to create a Power BI Pro dashboard. What I am going to do with the remaining minutes there is to show you some of the gotchas and some of the idiosyncrasies that you might be frustrated with the first time you go through, and hopefully I can help you push through some of those first struggles and hopefully avoid them. One thing that I would add to Scott's introduction part is this presentation, everyone who's listening and attending right now, is going to be eligible. Our chapter was lucky enough to be given 2 comp codes to the SQL Summit, the PASS Summit in Seattle, coming up at the end of October. We have one more, is that correct, Scott? One more presentation in the month of September.
That's right. That is correct.
So we've got, yeah, we've got this one. We had the one earlier in the month, this one, and then one more. We're going to draw randomly from all of the attendees, and this is not a discount code. This isn't money off. This is, there's no bill. So definitely worth tuning into this one and to the next presentation there for your chance to win that.
And that one's near the end of the month, I think the 29th.
Yes. So we will do that shortly. Give us just a day or two to compile all the attendees, get a list in there, and randomly pick 2 lucky winners. So without further ado, I will start telling you about Power BI Pro. But first I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I am currently the Senior Business Intelligence Architect at American Express. I shouldn't say the, I am one of, obviously, a pretty big company there. And relating to that, as I give at every presentation, the opinions and observations that you see here are my opinions and observations only. I am not here to represent the company in any way. In fact, a lot of what I'm going to show you here, as you can imagine, American Express being a bank and a credit card company, we have not adopted any of this where I work. So this is all extracurricular for me, so to speak, as an enthusiast in the SQL Server product and specifically the BI tools. So as you all probably know, I have hosted a few of these. I am one of the co-leaders of the BI virtual chapter. I'm also very active in my local community. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, but I now live in Newport Richey, Florida. And we're lucky enough to have 2 SQL basic for developer and administrator user groups here, one on each side of the bay. And we have a dedicated BI SQL user group that meets monthly. And we're going to be having our SQL Saturday BI edition coming up here in the middle of November. If you guys have any questions, if you think about it after the presentation, feel free to reach out to me. I will be on Twitter at SQLWes and LinkedIn. My email address is sqlwes@outlook.com, and I will post this slide deck when I'm done to my blog site, which is sqlwes.com. So I always tell folks, I get this a lot, and I'll make a little hint to it later in the presentation when we do the update, and hopefully that's still going to work for me. That my name is Wes Springob. I get misspellings all the time, and everyone wants to call me SpongeBob, so I am in no way related to Mr. SquarePants. So a little bit about my background. I came to the world of SQL Server. I entered reporting services at SQL Server 2005 edition and started getting involved more on the database side of things. I had started off as a .NET developer and a classic ASP developer, if you can remember what that was. And then I kind of started transitioning over on 2005 and became fairly proficient at transactional SQL. But as of late, the world of BI has been pushing more to the cloud, and I am starting to get my feet wet in the world of Azure. Still kind of new there and finding my way. And then on the Power BI front, everyone is new to Power BI because Power BI is new. On July 24th, in honor of my birthday, it's a joke. It just so happens to actually be my birthday, but that was the date of general availability. We had ended the long wait for the preview version to become officially released, and it was a long wait. And since that time, I've been familiarizing myself quite a bit with the product. But as you will see, there's still a lot to be learned. I'm still finding new things every day, and there's a lot of moving parts here. So let's take a jump in and take a look at why you might want to use Power BI. If you tuned in a little bit earlier, you probably heard Scott and I discussing some of the challenges with pulling the audience, the target audience of Power BI into the world of a web-based service when they are most likely pretty comfortable with what they've got today. You've got a lot of folks out there who see reporting services reports. They also see Excel, Power Excel users using Power BI on Power View and Query and Map and Pivot. And they might even have whole libraries out on a Spreadmart, on a shared drive somewhere, and passing reports and data around and not being very efficient about it. And then maybe you've even got something a little bit more robust than that. SharePoint and performance point dashboards have been out there for a little while now. And sometimes we install the reporting services and the Excel services into that area. So you might be asking yourself, well, that stuff works today. Why would I want to go on to use Power BI? But one of the, or several of the reasons have to do with the fact that each one of those solutions has a few idiosyncrasies. They excel in some areas, but they have some struggles and challenges in the other. So for instance, in Excel, I was dealing with this the other day, is the versions of Excel you had to jump in at 2010 was the first time you could use Power BI, and you had to use it as a plugin. Then we waited a few years for 2013, and it's no longer, you no longer had to install and download it, but you did have to understand how to enable the plugins, how to use them, and you also probably had to wait for your company to decide to upgrade to Excel 2013. So you have this longer release cycle that can be a challenge. I still work with folks who are on Office 2007, so this isn't even in the ballpark for them. So that's one of the concerns with Excel. And of course, collaboration becomes a bit of a challenge. Most folks will do the Spreadmart and put Excel spreadsheets on a shared drive somewhere. And then you have versioning concerns, you have security concerns with folks pulling the data down to their local machines and carrying it all over the world on their laptops. So that's just a few of the things that you might have. Even though Excel has all these cool Power BI features, it's still not quite there. Reporting services, my neck of the woods there, is a great tool for standardized reports if you want to deliver the same thing every day. But for the self-service side of things, reporting service isn't very user-friendly. You do have the report builder. Not many folks are using that, and those who do probably should be using Visual Studio instead. It's not very easily customized. You do have some portability and some sharing of shared data sets, but you still have the challenge of the major releases. Now, obviously, SQL Server comes around. Now we're on a every other year cadence, but that can take a while. And then, of course, the collaboration can be a challenge on reporting service as well. Now, SharePoint is more of your enterprise delivery mechanism. So if you've got the resources, obviously I've listed costs as one of the drawbacks to SharePoint. It takes quite a bit of configuration and administration and ongoing expense to maintain SharePoint. But in the end, you still kind of need Excel services or reporting services to deliver that. So great tools, each of them adds some strengths, but let's take a look at how Power BI can actually help out in a lot of those challenges. So one of the key features is, because this is a web-based service, there's no more version. It's continuous delivery, a continuous release cycle, as they're putting it, for the tool. So for instance, behind the scenes, you don't have to know that since the last time you logged into your Power BI account that some updates have been made. You'll just realize them immediately. So there's no more versions, no more plugins, and as you'll see in a moment, the collaboration part that's a bit of a challenge for Excel is actually built in. So your Power BI account can be linked to your Active Directory for domain authentication, and you don't have to worry about sharing this out to a lot of different folks. You simply set up your group, and all the right folks get to see all the right content. Of course, reporting services, the challenge of not being very self-service, this is the exact opposite of that. You can distribute data models and data sets out to your group and allow them to customize a dashboard, as we're about to see, and take reports that have been created, or even go in and create reports of their own just based on the data. And again, of course, the continuous release, the visualizations that are coming out monthly, if not weekly at this point, that's a major upside from reporting services. Now, for the SharePoint side, I will say that my experience with Power BI is that it is a less complex configuration. There still are a lot of concerns with setting it up correctly with security, and as far as getting all of the data connections put together, that there's a lot to do, but it is significantly less complex, and at the low cost of zero, infinitely less expensive. So you can actually go on, and I referenced that we're going to look at Power BI Pro, and that's the account that I have, but you can actually still go through on the demo version and play around with it for absolutely free. All the tools that we're going to look at today are no charge to download. You can create an account for free and get up and running and see what this is all about without spending the first dollar. I was very excited about the tool. Obviously, I was sitting around there on my birthday and waiting for the screen to purchase to change so that I could enter my credit card number. And like a fool, I rushed in and put it in and didn't even read the part that says that you can actually try Power BI Pro version free for a period of time. So of course I got that bill before I actually even needed to, but I have the pride of knowing that I was a day one customer. So
they should have given it to you for free as a birthday present.
Oh, that or a lifetime subscription,
That's
something
right.
like that. I don't know. So the cool thing is with the $10 a month, that's not going to take you broke at any stretch. You get, instead of the free version of 1 gig, and I think daily or a couple times a day you can do a refresh. When you go up to the pro version, you spend the $10, but you get up to 10 gigs of data storage out on your account. You get up to hourly refreshes of your data and up to 1 million rows of streaming analytic data per hour. So that's quite a bit of power in your hands for just $10 a month. So, and then of course oh, by the way, what else do I get? If you act now, in the next 30 minutes, we'll throw in natural language query. You may have seen this. This is the Cortana-based tool that you see recurring throughout the Windows world now, where once you have a data set available, you can type into a text box literally words like, show me the total sales for this country for the third quarter of 2014, and you will get the list of all the sales and the total. Pretty powerful stuff there for putting these tools into the hands of folks who probably aren't going to be SQL Server developers or writing their own queries, but do get and understand the underlying data and the basics of how it relates. Another key feature, as with everything today, you have your mobile support with Windows, iOS, and Android apps. And I gave this presentation for the first time yesterday evening, and I realized when I went to practice for today that I can't just hold up my phone at the end of this presentation and have you all see it. So I've got a little short video at the end to demonstrate the cool factor of being able to put this onto, I have an Android, so I picked the Google Store for that. Obviously, another big advantage here is this requires no on-site infrastructure. You do not have to have SQL Server. You can do this entirely with Azure through the Azure databases or through the Azure Data Warehouse. And you also do not need to have any version of Office whatsoever to run this locally. What was known, if any of you have played with the preview version, what was known as the Power BI Designer has become the Power BI Desktop tool. And I actually recommend, and I will demo how we can start with that. That's a free download, and all you have to have is your PC to operate that. Another big advantage is the scheduled data refresh from pretty much any data source that you can dream up on premise. Oracle, SQL Server, of course, any flat files, REST APIs. There's just a myriad of data sources locally that you can source. And then, of course, there's the data market, where through Azure you can go in and through third-party vendors as well, download and consume data that lives in the web and stays in the web for the whole time. Of course, there are developer tools if you want to dig into the nuts and bolts and create your plugins for REST APIs. And as I mentioned before, the streaming analytics of up to 1 million rows per hour, there's some really powerful stuff that we can do there within dashboards. I'm not going to get into the streaming analytics tonight because that is a whole other subject of conversation, getting that hooked up. But the Power BI interface does support that as well. So how do I get started? As with everything now, we start on the Microsoft website at the powerbi.microsoft.com URL. We start off there and we sign up for an account. As we mentioned, the preview mode and the pro mode. You will need a business type email address. In other words, you can't go in there with your @gmail.com address and sign up. It must be a discoverable business account. The Power BI Designer as I mentioned, has become the Power BI desktop. That's another one of the key 4 pieces that we're going to look at tonight. And the data connectors. There are 2 ways to pull data now for local type work. There is an enterprise gateway that is available. I'm not going to get into that one tonight, but there is something a little bit more robust than what I'm going to show you. The analysis services connector is for SSAS only. If you're going to use any other data source, your connector is the Power BI Personal Gateway. And it's important to note that you can only choose one at this time. Now, there is some talk that there's a possibility of having both on the same machine at the same time, but if you were to go to try and install one or the other while the first is currently installed on the machine, you won't even get through the installation. It'll stop you at a time. So that's something to be mindful of if you have a mixed environment where you have both an AS instance and a standard or any other SQL instance on the same machine. And then, of course, the 4th player are the mobile apps. The nice thing there is you don't have to be a mobile developer to get this stuff out there. So how do these guys fit into the world as we see it today? You know, how do we translate our existing reality into this new Power BI stack? So we can think of the website, the powerbi.microsoft.com, that fills the role of the host. And in today's terms, that's sort of like the report manager or SharePoint with the integrated mode for reporting services. The next one is the Power BI desktop tool. As I mentioned, that's the developer tool. And to some extent, you can actually use that as you might currently use Excel for local presentations. It works pretty good off your laptop, and you can present through PowerPoint or Excel itself. It fills that role pretty well. But in today's world, you can think of that as Visual Studio or as Report Builder for developing these reports. The data refresh connectors, the AS connector and the personal gateway, you can think of those sort of like your connection managers. They manage security and they kind of act like a DB driver. You can think of terms in the terms of reporting services or SharePoint shared data sources is sort of how they act. And then, of course, the mobile app's job is to turn CEOs into Pavlov's dogs, drooling over how cool it's going to be to show their buddies at golf how their sales are going through the roof while they're playing the back nine. And then, of course, the security officer, you can think of as giving him ulcers because all that data is in the CEO's hands, and he's out running around the world, jumping on airplanes with laptops and all kinds of stuff. And actually, it's not that dangerous, but it'll make them nervous. So, to the demo. So I'm going to kind of try to stick to this hit list of items that I want to show you how to go about creating your first desktop. So we're going to start by, I'm not going to actually create another Power BI account, but I'll show you where to do that, and a reminder that it's got to be a business mail. Then we're going to take a look at downloading and installing the Power BI desktop. Of course, I already have it installed because I want to be able to demo to you, but I'll show you where you can pick that up. And then we'll create our first PVIX file, and I will create that locally using the Power BI desktop tool, but then we'll push it out to my Power BI account. From there, we'll take a look at customizing some of the content in the dashboard, and then I will show you the personal gateway. This was a little bit of a challenge for me because it took me some time to actually get the gateway up and running. And then once we have the gateway connection established, I will show you how to go back out to the Power BI account and schedule the refresh of the data. Now this is something that's pretty cool because up until now, and I never got it to work in the preview mode for analysis services, the personal gateway to me was kind of this this threshold. That once we could do that, this became a very usable tool for a lot of folks. So I do have that up and running. I tested it earlier this evening, and a refresh from my other machine successfully made it out there. So I'm going to flip back and forth between these two, and I'm going to try to end my slideshow here. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is go out to the Power BI website. Are you seeing my browser, Scott?
I sure am.
Excellent. Okay, I'd just like to check when I'm going between the two.
Yes, you're good.
Applications. So you can see here, this looks a lot like my screen. I kind of stole the styling for the presentation. This is where you'll sign in. Now I'm obviously already signed in over on this other tab over here, but as you approach and want to set up your account, this is what you'll see. And when you sign in, let's see if it gives me another, now it's going to take me straight there. I was going to try to show you the login and the sign up. But you can, down here, just enter your email address and start off there. They will give you the free account and let you get up and running. You'll have to verify through your email application and come back in to verify setup, but you shouldn't have to pay to just get rolling. So this is where we'll start. You want to get the Power BI desktop. So basically take products, Power BI desktop, and it should download. I'm not going to go through this step. I'm going to assume everyone listening to this presentation has downloaded and installed Microsoft applications before. So once you have that downloaded, let me see if I can go back. Okay. You can see my taskbar. Oh, actually, I've got the gateway, not the actual Power BI desktop. I have a shortcut to both the application and to the connector here. So I'm going to open up Power BI desktop. And the first thing you'll notice is this feels a lot like Visual Studio, at least to me, in the styling and in the presentation here. And is it going to open? Okay. So what you're getting here is the developer splash screen. As odd as it seems, as soon as I fired it up, I installed the software. I chose to start it as soon as the installation finished, and I saw this window and I wanted to go close the browser or something, and I sat and tuned on this minimize button for a while before I realized, hey, this is actually a splash screen here, and it needs me to do something before I move on. It's going to disable everything in the background. So what's cool is if you've used Visual Studio, if you're familiar with any type of source control there, you'll get a similar feel with any PVIX files that you've already started, any reports that you've been working on in the past, or you can jump in and learn. There's a great deal of blog sites and developer sites to support the product. You can watch these videos. You can get sick of it at some point and uncheck this button that says show this on startup, and once you become familiar with the environment, not have to deal with this every time. Or another great way to jump in for data folks is to just say get some data. So let's try that and see what happens. All right, so obviously we've got all these different data sources, and at this point we aren't really all that concerned in the Power BI site, in our account, what type of data source we use. It doesn't really matter whether it's a analysis services data source or anything else. So for the moment, let's pick the SQL Server database, and we'll choose to connect to one, and we will see, I do not have my, excuse me while I flip over to Management Studio for just a moment here and grab that mouthful that I didn't want to have to key in. And I'll just paste that in. So what this is a local instance of SQL Server 2012 that is on the machine that I'm presenting to you on. You could choose to pick the default database, but I'd like to show you how we can explore this much like we do in Management Studio. So we're establishing that the connection is open, and here we go. I'm going to have to minimize this a little bit. Okay. Okay. So we have cannot open the user default database. Login failed for me. Uh-oh. I've done something incorrect. Okay. I'm going to shift gears for just a second and try to go back. That was not happening earlier. I'm sorry. My connection was okay. All right. Let me try this a different way. I'm going to refire Power BI, and I'm going to try to use one of my existing examples here. So I actually had prepared for just such an occasion a PVIX file that I had been working on before. So let's see if I can still get to that one to connect. Aha. Okay. So this is, excuse me while I move this here. This is the representation of a connection to AdventureWorks here. And I am actually in the transactional system for AdventureWorks and not the data warehouse here. And you can see that through this connection, I have pulled in the person schema, person table here. And I've started off with a couple columns on a couple different surfaces here. So what I want to do first, let me get rid of that one, get rid of this one. We'll start from scratch. Okay, so if we had come in fresh, made our connection, and basically chosen the person table, and I'll show you that through Management Studio. I apologize that my connection to this instance is not the same as it had been before. What you would be presented with is this tree view that you see in Management Studio, and you would have been able to pick the database as well as any of the tables or views. And what I had done in this previous file was to pick the person table that you see here and chosen that as a data source. So basically what this is saying, give me everything that's in that table is available to us. Now, if you've been using analysis services at all and worked on any models, this will probably look pretty familiar. If you've used Excel Power Tools, the Power View tools especially, this should look pretty familiar to you as well. So it's just as easy as saying, clicking the first name, and a table-like visualization comes up. That's your that's your default type of visualization. And you notice that there's many to pick from here. We can pick a matrix, we can pick charts, graphs, maps, gauges, and in addition to that, those normal visualizations, we also have things like filters that allow us to have on screen or within the report the ability for end users to pick certain filters. So what I had done was create a list of just all these people. And of course you want to know their first name, you might also want to know their last name. Okay. So with any good report, you're obviously going to want to be able to limit the list of folks that come out of that. So we can click the pull down here and we can add the name as a filter. But obviously I had already done that for this particular report already. Forgive me, I'm moving the controls for the GoToWebinar out of the way so I can manipulate this. So you notice off to the left here we have the visualizations and the filters. So if you want to go to the advanced filtering, we can come in here and provide a specific where clause type of selection and say where it is equal to, for instance, Wes. So let's apply that filter. Oh, and we have no people named Wes. Okay, so that is that's how I'm going to show you about the refresh. So right now we don't have anyone named Wes. What we're going to do is remove the filtering and put back the list of everyone in there. Okay, so what do we have now? This is a report, but it's more than that. It's also the visualization, of course, that we have with the table, but it's also the data. So this PVIX file that we're saving locally here, we're working in the desktop. We're going to save something here as a file. This report definition saves not just the layout, but it also saves the connection to the data, and it preserves that, and then it pushes it out when we say publish. So it's as simple as clicking on publish here, and it says that I need to be signed in. So although I have a SQL connection to SQL Server instance here, although I have the rights to save the file here locally, my account on Power BI still needs to be validated. Now you may be asking yourself, well, isn't he also logged in through Internet Explorer? I thought that myself. However, whenever these things get pushed out to your account, it needs to be validated once again. So even though I'm logged in the background on IE, it's going to ask me to give you my credentials again. So you'll notice whenever you sign up for your account, you'll get a connection, a login that looks like this, where you'll get your domain name and then on Microsoft.com. So I have my password here, and we're going to sign in, and hopefully it's going to let me. The file to my account on Power BI is going through from the person table. And hopefully this doesn't take too long. I'm working from home. I've got GoToWebinar in the background running. I've got SQL Server running on this machine. I'm doing it through Wi-Fi. And
the perfect
is there
demo.
Anything else I could jam through this tiny little modem the cable company provided me with? Yeah, if I can do this, I'll be all right. Okay, trying. So in the meantime, I am going to go back out to, oh, success. Just as I threaten it with leaving, it pulls through. So now when we go out to Power BI, we should be able to see, and this is my my existing example for the demo. Did I? Uh-oh. Oh, okay, it's taken a while to paint that back up there for me. Huh. Wow, I must be really using some bandwidth here. Okay, so I had this guy set up in the background, and I'll show you what we just pushed up in a minute. But this was sort of my safety net for a live demo. I created this dashboard before the session started, and what this is a report that shows some AdventureWorks data relating to models and some of the users who have purchased some of those models from AdventureWorks, and then of course a graphic on a map where all those people live. And I created this center section. As you can tell, I am not a UI developer, and I don't even pretend to be one. This filter is kind of positioned here so that everybody can see it easily. But off to the left, we have the sales results summing up by each of the different products. In the middle, we have this filter. And then off to the right, we have all the sales all over the world. Okay. Now, the filter works like this. Apparently, it takes special types of wash to wash bicycles. So you can pick these off individually. And you notice how our result sets, the result changes as we do this. Now, not everything has a sale associated with it. I know there's classic vests. So those are mixed in there. But you notice that we have the different bubbles popping up with the different counts for different geographies throughout the world where these things have sold very well. Okay, so we can take some of those away, and then if we take enough, we lose everything. But actually, we go back to selecting all of the products. So this is my safety net here. So now we've been able to push the Power BI, the PVIX file out to the site. But the big thing is that only happens once. So obviously, as developers, we don't want to have, we write a report, we don't want to have to push the data out every time we want to refresh it. You know, we build our warehouses typically on a daily, hourly, or maybe even more frequent refresh rate. And with that, you don't obviously want to be in the background clicking that publish every time, because the report itself probably isn't going to change that much. So there's really no justification for that. And that's where the personal gateway connector comes in. So we're going to come back over here, and I'm going to show you, maybe I'm not. I'll show you the link at the end. My browser's acting a little strangely. I'll show you the link at the end to get the personal gateway connector. Again, it's a download. You install the application. You fire it up. When you fire it up locally, you will have this other little icon that looks similar to it, but it's actually called Personal BI Gateway. And when you start this, there's a couple things to be concerned with. Notice, do you see the prompt for my login for administrator there, Scott?
No, I was hoping
I may have lost you on this because.
No, I was hoping it would pop
it's not
up.
Just lagging.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping. So it's kind of
okay. So you can imagine. Okay. So basically, what it's doing is it's giving me an administrator prompt to validate. Now I'm logged into my local machine, as we all should be, as just a user. But there's two possibilities when you fire up the gateway connector. You can either run it with administrative controls, or you can run it without. And I'm going to cancel this right now because you guys can't see it anyway. I'm not going to fire it up at the moment. But I'll show you the results of what happens. Once you start the personal gateway, you will have the option to pick between a couple different scenarios. Okay, and this is what's going to happen. If you choose to run it with administrator permissions, it will run as a service, and as a result, it can run, it can do the data refreshes for you, and you don't have to be logged into the machine itself. The machine just has to be on. That account has to be valid to run the service, and it can stay behind the scenes. So you can leave it, walk away. It'll still take your updates. On the other hand, if you run it without the administrator permissions, it runs as an application, and it's subject to having to be logged in at the time of the refresh. Now, I have tested trying to do it both ways, but have only been successful personally, and I believe this has more to do with my development environment, as the administrator permissions. It's the easiest and I think the most effective. So let me see if I can get that screen to refresh. It's just taking forever.
I know I've seen that with the GoToWebinar sometimes, that the lag is so severe.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the part that I need, because the person list is the one that I've got the scheduled refresh set up with. So if we run the personal gateway, we establish a connection between our local SQL server and Power BI. Okay, so that has been established through this connector, but how do we know that that's going on in the background? So if we come over to the person list here in the UI, we click on the scheduled refresh. This tells us the last time that it was updated, and you can see that I had actually scheduled this to run at 8 o'clock. And it tells me that it succeeded at that time. But there's a little secret, a little behind the scenes thing. I'm actually running this off of a different machine. And the reason for that is the personal gateway connector combined with a GoToWebinar connection and everything else I've got going on in the background. I didn't want to risk that coming into play. So the connector is actually connected to a different machine, but it's also AdventureWorks. It's also using the person data. So what you have to check out first is a series of checks. Is the gateway connected? Yes. Personal gateway on SQL Wes is online. That tells me that my connection between my local machine and this service is live. The next piece is, even though I've got a connection between the machines, my instance may need to have credentials into SQL Server, and pretty much always should. You need to have a login. There again, I do not currently run a domain for my local machine. I've got SQL Server, I've got my operating system, all of my applications. They run on one machine under one account. So that SQL Server has to be started and it has to be available at the time that this refresh happens. And as I notice there, I've got a little exclamation point and I'm looking over at my other machine. My machine is actually logged out at the moment and it went to sleep on me, and that's why I believe I've got the little exclamation point there. But if you change that SQL Server account, you're going to have to come back out here to the service to update those things. And then, of course, the final step is to schedule your refresh. Now, I know at the beginning I mentioned that the service advertises that you can update on a schedule of hourly. However, you seem to be able to add as many of these refreshes as you would like, and it also seems that you can do it at both the top of the hour and at half past. So I don't know. I have not tested the limitations of Power BI to see if it will, in fact, update my data every half hour for a total of 48 times a day instead of just 24 on the hour as it's promised in the advertising. But it would seem that that would be the case. The other thing to note is I have checked this button and I have checked all of my settings throughout. I can't figure out why I don't actually get those emails. It has my email. I've checked that account. The account doesn't put it into junk mail. I don't know what's going on there yet. But it obviously does fail because if we look at the refresh history, we can see that from time to time I have had some issues here with the gateway being offline. Okay, so that's the history for the entire time that this has happened. You can see it just happened successfully at 8 o'clock. So I noticed that I am running a little close to 9 o'clock. I haven't taken any questions, but before I go over and open that up, I did want to show you guys how we can actually mess around with the dashboard sections. The dashboard part, once we have the data set out here and we have the reports published, it's really just this simple. You can pin something to the dashboard by clicking the pin button, okay? And you can create a brand new dashboard from the scratch, from the ground up, or you can go to an existing dashboard. So I already have one, and I believe I've already actually got this content on there. But you notice over here we have the AdventureWorks dashboards, and we have all these different items. And this is where you would start the collaboration for your end users. You can share with them the dashboard. They can then feel free to orient things the way they like, move these around. It's drag and drop. Even though we're out here on a browser, it supports a lot of customization to the liking of each individual who happens to want to view the data. Another thing that I had wanted to go a little more deep into was the workspace. This is where we can provide our collaboration between users. So we can have multiple dashboards. We can add those in here, but we can also have groups that view those, multiple workspaces that could also in turn have several dashboards. These work groups we can edit, and it's very simple web-based collaboration where you enter someone's email address, you share it with them, and then the next time that they log into the group, they will see the content automatically, and they should also get an email notifying them that new content is available to them. So that's another way that the collaboration goes. Now, as a single user, as it's just a personal account, I don't have any of that set up here to show you the different views between different users, but this is how you can extend this among the groups of folks at your company. So, with probably less than a minute left here, my clock says not quite 9 o'clock. I have not seen any questions. Do we have anybody, Scott? I seem to have lost the GoToWebinar interface.
Yeah, there are just a couple questions, and we'll, of course, if anyone does have any questions, go ahead and post them in the Q&A area of the GoToWebinar panel, I guess is what it's called, but there will be a questions area, and you can go ahead and type it in there. But there's actually two that I'm seeing that's popped up already, and Raphael asked, everything's in the cloud, right? How do you manage the security for this? And that's I think an interesting question.
Yes, I am very excited about that part because that's a big concern for most folks. Mm-hmm. The neat thing here is you can extend your AD domain authentication out to the Power BI world, out to the Azure world. And you can be assured that when you use those methods to connect, and obviously I haven't got that far with this myself because I'm still running this locally. I don't have an Active Directory domain set up at my home, and I certainly am not going to be allowed to do that at work anytime soon. But that's how it's configured, is through extending the Active Directory out there. And then just as you would do any type of web-based domain authentication, this will work the same way.
Exactly.
So.
And then the other one, I'm not sure I quite understand this question, but I'll throw it out there and we can kind of maybe hash through it a little bit. It says, is there any way to specify connection to be always on, to be an always on listener? And go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how that would go, but I can give you a little bit more insight because the question came up last night for me, and someone said, you know, are you pushing the data up to Power BI? And certainly that first example that I gave was a push event. I pushed the report out as well as the data. But with that connector, you're actually doing a pull event because the schedule is set and secured and defined at the service on Microsoft.com. And then it says, as we look through those steps, and I'll see if I can go back there real quick, for the shared connections, or excuse me, for the schedules, once the gateway is established and the credentials have been verified, then this schedule says, okay, use that gateway that we've authenticated against up here to then go pull the data up to the site. So behind the scenes, and what I suspect you would want to do with that sort of always-on listening way that we said that, the connector does stay on behind the scenes when you set it up as administrator, and simply leave the machine connected to some sort of web-based access to the SQL instance. So that would stay on behind the scenes. I would suggest that versus not using the domain authentication, because then it just acts as an application.
Yeah, exactly. Let me see if we've got any.
I'm sorry, I am losing everything. Do you see any part of my screen anymore?
I'm seeing a black screen, and I noticed it popped up.
Oh, there we go.
There it got back.
So So if anyone, and this was the punchline yesterday, was me showing, if you, while you're thinking of questions or anything, was me showing the little video. Do you guys hear that music?
We we see the video. I do not hear the music.
Okay, well, there's a listen, or in your mind's ear, so to speak, envision a catchy little guitar riff going on right now. This is the one that I use, is the Android version, and it's firing through the fact that you can do all the collaboration and sharing, and to a mild degree some customization even on your phone. But remember, you can run it on your tablets. So that's it. I like how they have the little icons down at the bottom there for all the different versions that it offers on. But that's from Google Play.
And you'll notice at the bottom they said it's free. That's kind of been their mantra with the desktop designer and such, that it's quote free as long as you log in with your email address.
Yep.
There's a couple other questions, and then I think we'll call it for the presentation. But someone asked, sure, is there any special configurations for external web service type of scheduling?
Special considerations for web service scheduling. So I'm assuming we're then talking about not on-prem data. Is that how you'd read that?
Like, yeah. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
So you can connect special considerations. It actually acts as pretty much any other data source in. Oh, I'm sorry, I clicked the wrong one. And it's just not even going to try to paint that. I was going to try to show you. There's a get data at the bottom of Power BI site. It's not even loading. I apologize. Similar to the splash screen at the beginning of loading up the desktop, there's a get data down there. And what you'll find is once you land that data as a data set in your account, it then becomes sort of uniform, and anywhere in Power BI it can be treated the same way. So you can add custom calculations on the fields. Once the data is there, you can do pretty much anything you would with any other data source. Of course, behind the scenes, you have to have those connections available over to, for instance, cloud-based solutions like Azure or any of those other data providers that we talked about. The considerations, there's no connector involved with those. It's simply the UI through the website itself allows you to configure those and secure them separately. But as far as the end product, the dashboard itself, data is data to the Power BI world.
And there are plenty of data sources. They seem to be adding them each month with each new release. So
yes, definitely.
Definitely. I think that's all the questions that I'm seeing that we have, take a look at. Just kind of reminders for everyone. Again, on the 29th, we have our last BI virtual chapter session. We'll send out a note, an email registration note, but that will be the next session. And as Wes was talking about, that will be the last session we're going to collect names for that we'll use for our drawing. And as I was mentioning too, encourage you to participate in the 24 hours of PASS tomorrow. I was reading through the email just before this session started, and again, they're going to be offering some discount codes, and then also they're going to be pushing the quote PASS Boutique, which is a merchandise type of thing where you can go buy backpacks and t-shirts and other things that they're going to mention from what I understand tomorrow at the 24 hours of PASS session. So be sure to participate in those if at all possible. As usual, we appreciate y'all's participation today, and hopefully we'll have you on the 29th for that next session. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks.